Welcome and thank you for joining us today for DDI Directions 2026, Preparing Core Network Services for an Agentic Multi-Cloud World. My name is Raleigh Gould and I'll be moderating today's event. Our featured speaker is Shamus McGillicuddy, VP of Research covering Network Infrastructure and Operations at EMA. Shamus has nearly 2 decades of experience in the IT industry. His research focuses on all aspects of managing enterprise networks, including network automation, AI ops-driven network operations, multi-cloud networking, and WAN transformation. While Shamus will defer answering your questions until the conclusion of today's event, we encourage you to log them anytime by using the Q&A functionality. Also, today's event is being recorded, and you will receive a follow-up email from EMA with the on-demand playback, as well as additional information on this new research. So be sure to check that email out. And now I'd like to go ahead and turn things over to our featured speaker, Shamus McGillicuddy. Shamus?
Thanks, Raleigh. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. As Raleigh mentioned, this is a webinar highlighting findings from my DDI Directions 2026 research report. This is my second edition of this report. The first one was published in late 2023. It is an examination of how enterprise IT organizations manage DNS, DHCP, and IP address management. So very network engineering focused, very deep dive into a very niche category. Although it's not that niche when you think about it, as this research will reveal. I want to thank the sponsors for leading DDI vendors, obviously. Who else would sponsor this but DDI vendors? Blue Cat, Efficient IP, Fusion Layer, and Infoblox. You may have heard of one or two of them, or all four. Who knows? So thank you to them. This is independent market research. They have no editorial say in the report. All they do is they get to talk to me about what they'd love for me to investigate, and then they get to sort of co-own the data from the research and have their logos placed on the research and so forth. But they don't really get to tell me what to write about when I get the data and write the report. So true independent research, but made financially possible by my partners in the vendor community. So thank you to all four of them. So first off, let's just talk about research goals and methodology. And it's good to start by saying, hey, what's DDI? Some of you might, most of you probably know what it is. Otherwise, why would you be here? But DDI, it's a control plane for network identity. That's one way to say it. And it's also an integrated suite. It is the DNS infrastructure, domain name system infrastructure, the servers and services that you use to resolve domain names to IP addresses. It's also DHCP infrastructure, which leases IP addresses to new devices as they join the network. And it is IP address management, which is the management tool that integrates with those two resources and manages IP address space and synchronizes changes to DHCP and DNS services. So it's an authoritative source of truth for network identity, specifically IP addressing space, facilitates IP address planning, so forth, and DNS namespaces. It's also provides automated lifecycle management of those resources through integration, synchronization, and automated workflows. It offers a reliable and secure domain name resolution infrastructure, secure being very important because DNS in particular is a vector for attack in today's world. And it offers a policy-driven integration point across networks, clouds, and security systems. Like you have IP address management across your data centers. I mean, you need IP address management across your data centers, your cloud environments, your security infrastructure, and your enterprise network. You also need DNS services to help facilitate communication between endpoints and applications and services. This is critical infrastructure. If one of these things go down, outages happen. Case in point, I mean, there have been major cloud outages over the last 6 months that were caused by some mismanagement of DNS. And enterprises are not immune to that. They themselves experience outages related to DDI mismanagement as well. And why is it important? I mean, I just kind of elaborate on why it's important, but also in this research, we asked people like, what triggers your investment in DDI? Because 15, 20 years ago, more and more many enterprises took a homegrown approach to DDI. Like they relied on spreadsheets for IP address management, and they used a lot of free and open source DNS and DHCP infrastructure. But as time has gone on, they've taken more of an enterprise grade approach to things, and I think that's only accelerating. And the reasons why are, well, most of them say that they are investing in DDI because they want to reduce security risk, and they also consider DDI to be sort of critical to their efforts around automation of their network and their IT infrastructure. You see here a lot of them also are uh, recognizing that they need to invest more in DDI to support their AI ambitions. Like as they're building out AI factories, as they're running training and inference workloads, they're recognizing that they need to um, update some of their DDI infrastructure as well, or expand their investments in it to ensure that, for instance, all those GPU clusters have proper addressing in place, you know. And hybrid multi-cloud networking is another big driver, and we're going to explore that. The research explores that extensively. Um, but most DDI stakeholders admit they must do better. And this is why I do this research. 35%, only 35% said that their current approach to DDI technology is a complete success. So yeah, partial success, almost 61%. Those people, those 61% are telling us that they know they need to do a little better. How could they do a little better? We explore in this research. On the right-hand side, you can see some of the consequences of DDI mismanagement. We asked these people, hey, over the last 2 years, have you experienced any downtime or service disruptions associated with mismanagement of DDI? 58% said yes. We also asked them, hey, over the last 2 years, have you experienced any security breaches associated with the mismanagement of DDI? 40% said yes. That's big. So how can you improve? That's what this research aims to do, is to offer you some pointers there. I will this presentation is framed in the context of like 4 things you can do to improve DDI in your environment. Methodology here, we surveyed 300 IT pros who told us they're directly engaged with DDI. Either they were responsible for DDI solutions in their network, or they were managing the teams that were. And as you can see, 23% identified themselves as technical personnel, like engineers and architects. 52% were team managers, and 25% were IT executives. A lot of different industries represented: manufacturing, financial services, retail, and healthcare were the most numerous. Um, there was a mix of small to very large enterprise in this, and it was a transatlantic study. So we surveyed North America, specifically the United States and Canada, and then the 3 biggest economies in Europe, including the UK, which some people say is no longer part of Europe. But we won't get into the politics. So steps you can take to improve DDI. These are the key findings I'm going to cover in this. There are many more key findings in the report itself, which is something like 60 pages long and has like 60 or 70 charts. So I recommend you check it out. But these are the 4 things I'm highlighting in this. Number 1, make DDI a legitimate source of truth for network identity, starting with IPs and domain names and going from there. You don't necessarily need to stop there. Extend your DDI stack into the cloud. We'll get into that a little bit. That's a work in progress. Select solutions with modern APIs, automations, and integrations. And then last but definitely not least, recognize DNS as a key cybersecurity priority. And think about how you, as a DNS expert, can bring valuable knowledge to a cybersecurity team that may not really know much about DNS. So let's talk about the first one, making sure DDI is your source of truth for network identity. Most IT teams have incomplete awareness of DDI assets on their network. Only 48% told us they are very confident that they have awareness and visibility into all IP address space, DNS, and DHCP services. Why is that? Well, Systems engineering might be running their own DNS and DHCP for Windows and Active Directory, and they don't let you touch it. Cloud teams running DNS native to their providers. Like, oh, we have an AWS team, they use Route 53. We have a Google Cloud team using Google's DNS service. Um, and then, oh, our DevOps team loves to run open source DNS in their dev and test environments, and then they move to cloud DNS when they deploy applications into the cloud. Um, it's hard to get visibility into all that unless you have very good communications with those groups and or very good discovery engines on your DDI stack. And that doesn't even get into the fact that like IP address space can be kind of fractured as well. Like you might have, I've talked to people that have an enterprise grade IPAM tool, but they still have parts of their enterprise where IP address space is managed by Excel spreadsheets because one division has a network engineering team that refuses to get on board with what everyone else is doing. So lower confidence, as you can see on the right, lower confidence in that asset visibility we correlated with people feeling less successful with their DDI strategy, feeling that their DNS infrastructure was less secure, because how can you secure stuff if you're not aware of all of it? And high rates of DDI related downtime and security breaches. So how do you boost your asset awareness? Well, DDI Discover is essential. It's the number 3 most important feature on an IPAM tool, according to our research. Like 39% said I absolutely must have an IPAM tool that has automated discovery capabilities. Others might try to discover assets through their network observability tool, but IPAM tools are going to discover things like IP addresses associated with like endpoints. Your network observability tool might not be able to do that, for instance. 34% said that they use their vendor APIs to build discovery functionality, so they're filling gaps with API-driven discovery. One DDI architect actually told me he wanted DDI network monitoring integration because the monitoring tools that he has have powerful discovery engines. He thought if he had deep integration between his DDI stack and his network monitoring and network observability tools, he'd have better awareness of assets. That was one of the architects I talked to for this research. Because in addition to surveying 300 people, I also interviewed a handful of people one-on-one. And then 36% said our DDI tool needs a better automated discovery engine. That was that points to one of the reasons why confidence in asset awareness is soft. A lot of people don't feel like their current vendor is giving them what they need. Also, don't ignore the public cloud. I remember talking to a DDI architect 2 years ago, and like one of the thing that made him so excited was he had his DDI vendor had introduced cloud DNS discovery, and he's like, "Look at this!" And he showed me the 40 or 50 DNS services that he had discovered across his multi-cloud environment. And it's like, I just knowing these exist is wonderful. Um, and then also think about it in terms of not just discovery, but overlay management of third-party DNS and DHCP in the cloud and beyond. It ensures that asset changes are synchronized, right? So DDI suite integration keeps things synced to extend to make sure that any third-party services that aren't part of your integrated DDI suite from your core vendor are managed and tracked. So like, some new records are just added in AWS. I'm aware of those now, and I'm tracking them, and I'm synchronizing them with my IP address plan, and I know where they are, and any changes that happen in the future, I'll be aware of, and maybe I can drive changes to it from my core DDI stack because I have read and write capability in the cloud. That would be good. Going the extra mile, thinking of DDI as not just a source of truth for DDI infrastructure, but also the network in general. I've been doing a lot of research on the concept of network source of truth. It is often driven by a need to improve the the quality and accessibility of operational data for the networking team, and also enabling efficient operations and automation. When I talk to someone about their efforts to build out a network source of truth for their IT organization, it's like I need to improve my data. I need to improve efficiency of operations by like making sure that operators can access all the data they need to do a certain task from one place or one federated environment, and then I can drive automation through it. Um, what does a network source of truth do? It documents network intent. Like, oh, this is everything I need to know in order to do a change on my network. Like I know how my network is supposed to be, because I have all the data here, and that ensures that any change I make on the network is going to comply with my intent and not break things. Uh, so it documents your network intent by having all the data associated with intent in one place, and then models the network based on that data so that you can interact with it and understand, how things like IP address space, network inventory, topology all interact. And then it provides other tools with API access to that intent data so that you can do operations through it with automation tools, for instance. 85% of the IT teams we surveyed in this research said that DDI is a part of their network source of truth. Most of them believe that it was one of multiple tools that would be federated. Like, oh yeah, I integrate my IPAM tool, my DDI tool with my data center infrastructure management tool, and this other tool that I have that tracks connectivity and stuff, and sort of sync data between them. Some of the people, a minority of the people in this research felt that their DDI solution was their core source of truth, their key piece of network source of truth. We also asked in this research, how confident are you that your current network source of truth is an accurate representation of your uh, network intent? And only 45% expressed complete confidence. So there is some work to do there. There's a recognition that it's very hard to keep this data quality, this data accurate, especially if people are making manual changes to the network without logging it in your source of truth, for instance. You got to eradicate that. You got to put change controls in place to make sure it doesn't happen. But confidence in an accuracy of network source of truth correlated with better DDI asset awareness, makes sense. Extensive integration between IPAM and DNS and DHCP services makes sense because you can track changes across the three components of DDI. That means that your source of truth is up to date. And then higher quality DDI APIs. If my DDI vendor provides good APIs, I can ensure data quality in my source of truth, because people can integrate your DDI solution with other aspects of their network source of truth, but also other aspects of IT operations management, so that any changes that happen to the network are reflected in all systems, including the DDI stack that might sit at the center of your source of truth. So going the extra mile, thinking about, hey, I don't want just a source of truth about IP address space and DNS, but I also want the source of truth about my network inventory, devices, device makes, models, OS version. I also need connectivity, rack space. Where is this device connected? What's connected? I mean, where is this device installed? What's connected to it? How does um, how is it dependent on other things like that? Everything you need to know, for instance, to generate a config file, could possibly be in a network source of truth. If you can extend your DDI stack to help you get there, then you're achieving true network engineering excellence. All right, extending DDI across your hybrid multi-cloud environment. Most enterprises are hybrid multi-cloud at this point. They're definitely multi-cloud. And the DDI team doesn't always have sufficient influence over how IP address space and DNS in particular is implemented in the public cloud. Only 49% of the people in this survey said that their DDI team has all the influence they need over DDI infrastructure and services in the cloud. So 51% literally said they need more influence. Limited cloud influence correlated with less successful DDI strategies. Um, and IT teams that perceived the biggest uh, cloud influence gaps were the network engineering team, the DevOps team, and the IT architecture group. So those three groups were saying, we're ringing the alarm saying, hey, like the DDI team needs to have more say in how IP address space is managed, how DNS services are managed in our public cloud. The only group that seemed to think that they had plenty of influence was the cloud operations team. Um, don't believe them. The cloud teams often are hostile to network engineering teams. They're like, they think if I let network engineering touch something as modern as the public cloud environment, they're just going to break things or slow things down. They can, all I want them to do is manage like private infrastructure. I don't want them meddling in my world. Well, that doesn't fly anymore. I think it's like when I talk to network engineers, some of them don't want anything to do with the cloud. But others recognize that they have to because as more and more critical services migrate to the cloud, whenever something goes wrong, like they're going to get pulled in anyway because the cloud team's going to be like, oh man, something's wrong and we can't figure it out. Maybe we should talk to the network team. Maybe they can figure out. Maybe it's like a connectivity issue. They might be able to pinpoint it. All I know about is application infrastructure. I don't know anything about connectivity and traffic and stuff. And so like they get pulled in anyway. And if they're not, if they're being pulled in, on day two when they haven't had any say on day zero, day one, that's not an efficient way to operate. So the cloud teams needs to get involved in config management of DNS infrastructure, records management. They need to be up to date and have a say on how things are secured around DNS in the cloud. They need to be able to have at least some visibility, if not control, over IP address space in the cloud so that they can understand like addressing conflicts across a hybrid cloud environment. And they want to be able to synchronize changes across IP space in DNS so that everything's up to date. The cloud team might not necessarily be rigorous about that because they don't have tools to automate that kind of synchronization. So that is the issue. So DDI solutions must discover, integrate with, and manage cloud resources. This network architect at a very large multinational automobile manufacturer said if DDI is integrated with cloud, it helps not just with effective management, but also from a security standpoint. So we asked people in the survey, hey, what kind of what do you want your IPAM component of DDI to do with your cloud IP address space? Only 28% said, oh, read-only IPAM integration is fine. Like as long as I can discover and reconcile IP address space in the cloud with my core addressing plan and on-prem, that's good enough for me. 66% said no, we need more than that. We want DDI solutions to actively control and manage IP address space in the cloud. And a good chunk of the DDI vendors out there have not fully delivered that yet. So it is a work in progress, but the demand is there. And then they also want their core DDI IPAM capability to manage cloud DNS as well. Only 27% said that they're happy with just cloud DNS discovery and reporting. 68% said no, I want full IPAM overlay management and cloud DNS. Any change to cloud DNS should sync with my IPAM tool. Any change I make on my IPAM tool should make changes to cloud DNS. That is where the industry wants to go. And the deeper that DDI cloud integration is, the more successful people felt with their overall DDI strategy. So it's critical to get influence over and control over DDI implementation in the cloud. All right, prioritize APIs, integration, and automation. So choose a vendor that believes in an API first solution. Like one person told me, hey, you know what? The GUI, the graphical user interface for my IPAM tool should really just be a wrapper around an API. Every single functionality offered by that tool should be accessible through my API. Um, Not everyone's there. We asked the 300 people in the survey to tell us how they felt about the quality of the APIs that their DDI vendors offer, and only 41% said very good. 56% said somewhat good, which tells you that they are not 100% satisfied, maybe 80% satisfied, for instance. And then almost 3% said not good at all. Um, the better they felt about APIs, the more likely they're to tell us that their overall DDI strategy is successful, which tells you that good APIs is a foundation of a successful DDI implementation. They also, good APIs also correlated with better visibility into DDI assets and data that we just talked about around like how to use, why and how to establish a DDI source of truth or good asset awareness. They believe uh, high quality APIs are important, and many of them use it to discover DDI assets, for instance. Uh, Good APIs also correlate with more extensive automation of DDI operations. A lot of people use APIs to drive automation through integration and and scripting and so forth. More DDI team influence over cloud strategy also correlates with a good API. And why wouldn't it? Because cloud and DevOps teams, that is the currency of their realm. Do you have an API? So that I can integrate my stack with yours. If you come to the cloud with a DDI solution that has a world-class API, those cloud guys are gonna be like, wow, I like this. Look at this. It's well documented. It's RESTful. Um, it's it even has an SDK. Great. You know. Um, and then more secure DNS infrastructure. Get into that in a second. So API challenges and opportunities. On the left, you see the most common complaints people had about their DDI APIs. Number one, documentation. Do they update it consistently after a new release? Is it available in your language? um, it's important to have good documentation about your APIs so you know how to use them and how to work with them. Quality issues like broken tools, errors that happen when I make an API call, unacceptable. Performance, like it takes a while to compile. That's another common one. And then scope. How much of the data and functionality is exposed through them? One engineer told me, as I mentioned earlier, like the GUI should just be a wrapper on the API. Like everything should be available, all the data, all the functionality. Please make it happen. How do these people use DDI APIs? The three big ones here: automation of DDI operations, automating things like discovery, building custom automated workflows for overall DDI operations, filling the gaps between the DDI tool and other tools, like driving automation between those. Security and compliance enforcement, like, APIs can be used to trigger updates in firewalls or NAC tools. So when an API is assigned a new device, the NAC tool can recognize it, for instance. If a security tool detects an anomaly, it can make an API call to the DDI solution and move that device's IP address to a quarantined DHCP scope, for instance. And then integration with third-party systems is a big one. And you see on the right their integration priorities: security monitoring, like SIMs, streaming data to SIMs is like streaming DNS logs and queries to the SIM so it can identify anomalous activity is one thing, but you also want the SIMs to be able to send alerts to DDI tool, either for automated action or to prompt a DDI engineer to investigate an issue. Like, the SIM tool is seeing this anomaly. Let me see. Let me look at that on my end. Integration with network security systems. So, let's update the security policies based on this new record that we entered into to DNS, or we've added this new range of IP addresses associated with these devices. Let's update the security policy on that firewall. And then IT service management integration. Everyone integrates with that. I mean, it's the number 3 priority here, but everyone either does it or wishes they could do it. It enables ticket management, maybe even CMDB integration. It basically helps automate moves, adds, and changes, and overall compliance with service and design standards, for instance. So that's a big one. Full DDI automation is elusive. We asked on the left-hand side, we asked, to what extent has your organization automated management of DNS, DHCP, and IP address management? Only a little less than 14% claim to have more than 80% of DDI operations automated. So this is interesting because in theory, a DDI platform should automate everything associated with DDI operations. But it's not happening. And as a result, you see lower rates of automation correlates with less DDI success. Technical personnel, who are the ones that are going to know this best, perceived more manual operations than IT executives in this survey. That is an important gap. IT executives think they have fully automated DDI operations to a great extent, and engineers and architects were like, nope, got a lot of manual work. We asked them, where are your biggest gaps around automation? The biggest one was compliance checks and audit reporting. That is a gap across all of network engineering, not just DDI. And I'm actually planning to do some research on that topic very soon. IP address conflict detection and remediation is another one, and then discovery and reconciliation. There's still a lot of manual discovery happening. Probably because some of that data is living in an Excel spreadsheet, for instance. But anyway, why isn't automation more extensive? I'll tell you, the first thing that comes to mind is multi-vendor environments, multi-cloud portions of IP address-based plans and legacy tools like spreadsheets. I have never met a single network engineer who claims that he has unified all of DNS into his DDI stack. He can't do it because of technical or cultural reasons. The security team won't let him take over the DNS that lives on their firewalls, for instance. The cloud team won't let him take over AWS Route 53. The Windows team will not let go of Active Directory. And as a result, manual operations persist. And then there's unauthorized manual changes that might happen on your network that lead to manual investigations and remediations as well. It's hard to eradicate manual operations in any aspect of network engineering, including DDI. All right, mature your approach to DNS security. How am I doing on time? All right, yeah. Most enterprises have DNS security gaps. Only 27.7% of the people in this survey told us that they feel that their DNS infrastructure is completely secure. That's really low. Somewhat secure is not good enough. 70% are there. That is not good enough. It's disappointing. Common security measures that they're implementing, 58% said they are using a specialized DNS security solution. That would, for example, be one of the 4 sponsors of this research. They all offer something there. 52% are doing DNS traffic inspection, looking, for instance, for command and control activity and exfiltration. 49% are monitoring and analyzing DNS queries and logs, probably in their SIM. And 47% said they have implemented DNS policies in their traditional network security systems, like intrusion prevention, firewalls, secure access service, edge stacks, whatever. What do more secure enterprises do differently? Well, first off, the people who told us that the DDI team has primary ownership of DNS security reported more secure DNS. I wasn't expecting that. I thought that cybersecurity teams would be the way to go, but these people basically telling us that if the DDI team owns DNS security, it's a better outcome. And I guess it makes sense because DDI engine. I think I've talked to DDI engineers who were like, well, I just don't. I'm not convinced that my little world of DNS is that important to cybersecurity. Like, what can I bring to the table that cybersecurity doesn't already know? And apparently, you can bring a lot. I think DDI engineers are underestimating the value of their expertise in this one area, especially as DNS security becomes more critical over time. It's becoming like the number of exploits, especially AI-powered exploits, are elevating. DNS is increasingly targeted as a surface area. And I think DNS experts can recognize anomalous behavior perhaps more readily than cybersecurity teams. And if they deploy DNS specialized DNS security solutions, they might be able to tighten things even more. They also are probably most likely to know how to remediate a DNS attack more than a cybersecurity team, because cybersecurity teams are not often fluent in networking in general and DNS in particular. They may have like a cybersecurity solution that understands DNS and can protect DNS, but do they know the best way to implement it? Not necessarily. Number two, more secure enterprises told us that they are better at discovering and tracking all DDI related assets. You can't secure what you don't know is there. Assets that aren't centrally controlled are also not going to comply with security policies and controls. Like, you need to be able to know what assets you have so you can secure them, and then you need to implement strong controls around how that stuff is managed so that new vulnerabilities aren't introduced through mismanagement. Because as we pointed out earlier in this research, 40% of the enterprises in this survey had experienced a breach over the last 2 years due to DDI mismanagement. Number three, you need to maintain full integration between IPAM and DNS services because, as I just mentioned, that ensures better compliance with config standards. It ensures that changes are synced and no dangling records are hanging around after. But someone's like, oh yeah, I am my cloud DNS is not managed by my DDI vendor, but that's fine. Like, whenever I shut down a a, um, a VM in AWS, I'll eventually remember to remove a record associated with it in Route 53. Maybe I won't do it right away, and then I just saw an article in Network World the other day saying that AI is making it easier to exploit dangling DNS records. You can't be lax about this stuff. More secure enterprises also implement DDI solutions with powerful APIs for integration with SecOps tools and network security systems. Like, that ensures that suspicious activity is surfaced quickly, and it ensures that security policies are up to date. More secure enterprises also fully are automating more of DDI operations. Like, the more automation they had in place, the more secure they were. That eliminates the errors that open up vulnerabilities. It ensures that nothing's left undone, like I was referring to earlier. And then more secure organizations also have DDI teams that have a lot of influence over the cloud and partner with them to ensure end-to-end DDI architecture is implemented. This ensures that hybrid infrastructure complies with security policies. It can, if you have your core DDI stack running the show, you got role-based access control there that makes sure that only authorized people are making changes to your infrastructure. It just leads to better outcomes. All right, so final thoughts. DDI maturity is elusive. Like, a little, almost two-thirds of enterprises feel like they need to be doing better with their strategy around DDI. Um, when you talk about DDI strategy, think about it in terms of a source of truth for your network. I think that's going to resonate with other parts of IT operations, especially the rest of network engineering. It might even trickle up to this C-suite. I think the C-suite's becoming more aware of the importance of data quality, especially as AI comes into the picture, because most of the people I surveyed this year about like applying AI to network operations and network data are telling us that they don't have full confidence in their network data, not just DDI, but everywhere, like config information, for instance. Like I just don't have a good sense of how my network is configured. I'm not confident in my traffic data, like that's being collected, everything. Um, they need a good source of truth for agentic NetOps, for instance. And so that's being discussed. Don't let the cloud team go it alone with DDI. If they're hostile to you, bake them some cookies, Um, don't settle for garbage APIs and limited automation. Like, there's no excuse for an API that doesn't give you a full scope of functionality and access to the data in the DDI stack. And it's got to be modern. It's got to be documented. And recognize that your DNS expertise is a cybersecurity resource. Like DNS infrastructure is highly insecure today. Mismanagement's leading to breaches. If you take control of not just DDI operations, but DNS security in particular, I think you're gonna have better outcomes. All right, so with that, turn it over to Raleigh for Q&A. Here's a link you can click on to get the full report. It's free to subscribers. If you're not a subscriber, become one, or you can drop like 12 or 14, I think it's $1,200 to download it. Or go to one of the sponsors' websites. I think a couple of them have distribution rights to this report, so you can see if they've posted it yet.
Great. Thank you, Shamus. I will also include a link to the research report that is on EMA's website in that follow-up email. Diving into the questions, the first one is, aside from DDI data, what else are network teams documenting in a network source of truth?
I got into this a little bit during the presentation, but it depends on the use case that you have for a network source of truth. Are you looking to drive network automation or net DevOps? Then you need to get inventory data, like make, model, OS of network equipment, things like that. Um, Connectivity and topology, how is everything connected? Where is it located? Are you a WAN engineer? You probably want like all the data about your routers plus the circuits that they are terminating, the name of the carrier, the SLA, support phone number. Um, are you managing firewalls? You want to document security policies in there. The key is use cases will evolve over time, so you probably want something flexible and extensible so that you can put anything in there. So, and model it. Because right now, like you have a DDI solution, you got a good source of truth for IPAM and DNS and DHCP at least. But can that DDI solution help you model the rest of that? I think vendors vary in whether they are doing that. And some of them will help you integrate with the other aspects of your source of truth to facilitate that through APIs, professional services, connectors, things like that.
Great. Thank you, Shamus. What kinds of DNS security threats are people most concerned by today?
In this research, it was malicious redirection of users. That was the big thing. They're worried about like things like cache poisoning, spoofing, hijacking, phishing, things like that. And then the other one was DDoS attacks, distributed denial of service, like flooding and amplification, things like that. So those are two big ones. And then the top secondary worry was like a DNS abuse, like exfiltration, for instance, like hiding bad behavior and DNS activity, like as legitimate DNS traffic or legitimate queries and so forth. So like, hey, there's this looks like DNS traffic, but it's actually our data being exfiltrated or it's command and control activity, things like that. So that's what they're most worried about.
Thanks, Shamus. Let's take one final question. Is there any AI innovation going on in the DDI market?
I haven't seen a lot. I think, I talked to all the vendors, and I think they're it's coming. I've seen a couple vendors introduce like virtual assistants for conversational interfaces, like querying DDI infrastructure and software and pushing automated change through it to some extent. Some vendors are applying AI to DNS security to do things like behavioral analysis and anomaly-based threat detection and things like that. Some vendors have started to talk about agentic operations, like actual like reasoning about what's happening. Like, hey, here's a problem that we've identified. Here's what we think is actually happening and why, and what you can do to fix it. I think that you're going to see vendors start to introduce that over the next year or two, but it's still early. Like most of the network management world is still kind of early with like advanced AI capabilities. Like a lot of them are doing the virtual assistant stuff. A lot of them are doing some machine learning and anomaly detection stuff. But the true like agentic autonomous operations is still kind of emerging. But I think you'll see more, and buyers want it. I talked to a lot of network engineers every year, and like the number who the like 3 years ago when I talked to them, be like, yeah, AI seems nice. I guess I want AI capabilities from my vendors, but I don't really trust it yet. I don't want them like taking my data and doing stuff with it. I don't know. It's not important. This year it's the opposite. Like people are like, "Ah, we have to have it. I'm training my own models, We're training our own models, then we're integrating it with our DDI solution. 43% of the people that we surveyed in this DDI Directions report said it was a top consideration when they're selecting vendors now. They want agentic solutions. So they're going to be asking, a lot of your colleagues and peers are asking DDI vendors to articulate a strategy. And some of them have a strategy and some don't. So we'll see how things roll out over the next 2 years. But yeah, I think that's going to be a big area of innovation moving forward.
Thanks for all those insights, Shamus. And I wanted to thank our audience for taking time out of your schedule to join us today. As I mentioned at the start of the webinar, you will be receiving a follow-up email from EMA later today with resources from today's event. So be sure to check that email out. Thanks again for joining us and enjoy the rest of your day.